Hi again. Walter Rauschenbusch, Christianity and the Social Crisis, page 383, in the last chapter, What to Do. The scale on which the parable of the wicked husbandman has been reenacted in human history is stupendous. For instance, the king or duke in primitive Teutonic life was simply a capable man chosen for temporary leadership in war. This temporary power tended to become permanent. This permanent power tended to become hereditary. Tenure by capable service tended to become tenure by divine right. The limited monarchy tended to shake off its limitations, to suppress coordinate forces of government and become absolutism. When Louis XIV asserted the state, it's me, or l'état, c'est moi, the steward was calmly facing the owner and asserting that the owner existed by leave of the steward. The steward had embezzled the property so long that the relationship between owner and steward had been turned upside down in his mind. When Frederick the Great of Prussia said, on the other hand, that the king is the foremost servant of the state, the royal philosopher felt the breath of the coming French Revolution fanning his brow. But the fact that so obvious a truth had to be stated at all is the most convincing proof that the stewardship of kings had long been a buried idea. The great movement of modern democracy, which is still so far from its goal, is simply an effort to bring one set of faithless stewards to terms and restore their power to the people from whom it was alienated. The great feudal system under which medieval society lived and did business, just as we live under capitalism, was fundamentally a systematized network of stewardship. A great noble was given a province by the crown on condition that he render certain services, usually the military protection of public peace and safety. He in turn conferred smaller domains on smaller lords under similar conditions. But just as in the case of the kings, the feudal lords tended to shake off the obligation incurred and to strengthen their hold on the power conferred. Feudal stewardship turned into ownership and then shifted its fundamental military duties and taxes on other classes of the population, until the people, who were the owners of the land, sat shivering on the doorsteps of the stewards and made obeisance when they were kicked. These are simply two illustrations on a large scale to show how vast have been the embezzlements of power from the people, and what a long historical struggle is necessary to oust the fraudulent steward and regain possession for the people. It would be easy to multiply the illustrations from history. It is more to the point to mark the same process today. When a public officer secures government positions for his relatives or for those who work for his election, or succulent contracts for the patriotic businessmen who put up campaign funds, he uses the property of the people to pay for services rendered to himself. That's essentially embezzlement by an agent. When President Cleveland solemnly announced that public office is a public trust, it was greeted as a noble assertion of a great principle. What would be the condition of mathematical science in a nation if the solemn announcement that 2 times 2 is 4 should be hailed as an enlightening utterance? The standard of honor in public life has fallen so low in our country, this is 1907, that it is very difficult to secure the conviction of even flagrant offenders, because the official world, by community of sin, has lost its capacity for moral indignation. When the law touches one man on the shoulder, a shiver of apprehension runs down the whole line. Our political parties, at least in their local administration, are largely held together by the cohesive necessities of common plunder. Democracy is paralyzed by the party managers. The owner is once more being ousted by the steward. Our public service corporations exist because the community grants them the use of public property and exercises the sovereign right of eminent domain on their behalf. They are stewards of public property and powers. But we have all seen in recent years that they have been very close to forgetting that they are stewards and have acted as if they were the owners. The present movement for rate regulation, for instance, is simply an effort to assert the rights of the owner over the steward, and the aggrieved astonishment with which this movement has been met by the class that owns the railways is interesting proof that the usual historical process was very far advanced. It has gone much farther in the case of mining rights. Our laws have been exceedingly open-handed to those who discovered and developed the mineral resources of our country. But this generosity has always been based on the tacit assumption that it was a good thing for the entire community to have the minerals brought out and cheapened, and that the grantees of mining rights would hasten to bring them out and compete in selling them. Mining rights are a form of public franchise and are conditioned on public service. It is preposterous to think that an individual or a corporation can ever have absolute ownership in a vein of coal or copper. A mining company owns the holes in the ground, for it made the holes. It does not own the coal, for it did not make the coal. The coal is the gift of God and belongs to the people. If the people entrust the mining of the coal to anyone, it is a delegated right and can be recalled if the stewardship is abused. If mining rights are now used to keep coal in and make it dear, instead of bringing coal out and making it cheap, that would be ample moral ground for canceling all rights. Put in a link to Martin Hengel, the great New Testament scholar, on property, land, and equality in ancient Israel. See you next time.